So we're not sure whether or not Rebecca Ferguson is going to be in Dune Messiah. And I've speculated before that possibly she could be, because if they're wanting to incorporate elements that were missing from Dune Part 2 when it comes to Lady Jessica and Aaliyah Atreides, like their relationship, maybe they'll try to incorporate some of those elements from the previous book into Dune Messiah to justify her appearance in that story, in that film. There hasn't been any official announcements as far as casting goes, but Rebecca Ferguson is signed on for a big budget sci-fi thriller called Mercy, and this is from Amazon MGM Studios. I guess they also did Project Hail Mary. So this is another sci-fi film from them that is going to cinemas, to theaters as well. So that's interesting. I guess Rebecca Ferguson and Chris Pratt are both the leads for this movie. As far as when this was initially announced, it was slated for winter 2026. I'm not sure if that's still the release date. Let's look. So this is an exclusive by Deadline. Amazon MGM Studios, Timur Bekmambetov. He's directing the sci-fi thriller Mercy, starring Chris Pratt, and will now hit cinemas around the globe on January 23rd, 2026. The previous release date was August 15th, 2025. The move will leave Universal's Bob Odenkirk's action movie Nobody 2 standing alone on that date for now. So it's already moved production dates, which is interesting. So on its new date, Mercy stands unopposed, coming a week after the MLK 2026 theatrical releases Weapons from Warner Brothers, Sony's 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, and an untitled movie from Disney. So Mercy is set in the near future when capital crime has increased. Mercy follows a detective, played by Chris Pratt, who is accused of a violent crime and forced to prove his innocence. The picture also stars Rebecca Ferguson from the Dune and Mission Impossible franchises, Kaylee Reese from True Detective, Annabelle Wallis from Blinders and The Mummy, Chris Sullivan from This Is Us, Kenneth Cho from 911, Kylie Rogers, Beau is Afraid, Rafi Gavron, A Star is Born, and Jeff Pierre from Walker. Marco Van Bell, who wrote Arthur and Merlin, wrote the movie. The project came to Amazon MGM from producer Charles Roven, who did American Hustle, who earned an Oscar for Best Picture on Oppenheimer last year. He is producing Mercy with Atlas Entertainment executive Robert Amidon alongside Bekmambetov and Maud Nassif. Pratt starred in the highly viewed feature film The Tomorrow War on Prime Video during COVID. That was on streaming, which was supposed to have a sequel, but that never came about. But that was an interesting movie. I enjoyed it. Popcorn flick. It was pretty entertaining. But now it's like under Amazon MGM, and it's going to be straight to theaters. I am wondering what the actual science fiction element is, because so far, it just says that, well, it's in the near future, so it's not that far. Capital crime has increased. Pratt is falsely accused of a violent crime and forced to prove his innocence. Is this like The Fugitive? So I don't know what's the element that's steeped in sci-fi. So I'm really curious as to what the movie actually is about. This seems like a very generic plot line that we've seen thoroughly done in other stories, so curious to see more about this movie. So I have another article from Collider that's kind of talking about the same thing. It was hit with a delay, which I'm not sure what caused the delay, other than it seems like they're just moving stuff around. Rebecca Ferguson, though, was recently quoted about working on this film, and this is where it was also revealed that her character was an AI judge, which intrigued her. She said the character was intriguing, but the director and the producer, so Timur and the producer Chuck Roven, who did Oppenheimer, it was the conversations with them about where they wanted to take the character of Maddox. Ferguson was captivated by the potential of what she could achieve with Maddox in such a compact time frame. Yeah, she only worked on the film for a total of 8 days. She said, I have basically one look and so many small details in the acting. I know it's AI, and it once again puts me in sort of a futuristic box. For me, I picked the roles due to the character and what I haven't done before. And when it came to her experience working with Pratt, she said that he's the loveliest, kindest, and a very smart human being, adding that I'm not saying that I'm shocked, it's just I'm so happy to be working with such lovely people. I feel very lucky. She added, before saying that his smarts and love for fun made him such an endearing collaborator. He's such a goofball with a very high intelligence. And she also shared a story from when the cast was rehearsing that demonstrated Pratt's ability to think on the fly. She said, quote, we hadn't started filming at this point, but when we were rehearsing, he left the room and I threw him a one-liner and he just threw one back within a second. And I thought his mind is very active. So Mercy, will now open January 24th, 2026. Don't know much about it. Hopefully we'll hear more about what makes this science fiction. If it's like Minority Report, yeah, that's exciting. I'm interested to see how this goes as far as Amazon MGM and the theatrical movies they've produced. But yeah, I'm curious to see how this particular movie kind of stands apart, because as of right now, it does sound very generic, I guess. This is a premise that is very familiar. They said it's a science fiction thriller. Hopefully there is more of an element that's original to this particular movie. A guy who's accused of a murder he didn't commit. That's been done a million times. So we definitely need more science fiction movies with original ideas. But hopefully we will hear more about it that sounds like it will have something original to it. As it stands, it's like The Fugitive meets Minority Report. Love both those movies. I mean, Rebecca Ferguson's great, and Chris Pratt, great actors. Hopefully we'll see more news that will indicate how is this going to distinguish itself, and hopefully there'll be something original in whatever element that will steep it into science fiction. So curious to hear more about it. It's honestly encouraging to see Amazon doubling down on sci-fi films like Project Hail Mary. If they nail that story, and I've got a good feeling they might, given just how much that book begs to be on the big screen, it could be a massive win for them, not just in terms of box office, but in cementing their reputation as a go-to studio for big screen sci-fi. For a while, it seemed like studios were only interested in churning out what they thought were safe bets, especially Disney with Marvel and Star Wars. But this push toward big-budget, thought-provoking sci-fi feels like a nod to audiences who've been craving something more heady. It's not just Amazon either. The success of the Dune films and the slow-burn brilliance of Severance and Silo on the small screen shows there's a real hunger for these kinds of stories. Sci-fi at its core isn't just escapism. It's a way to wrestle with big ideas, technology, survival, what it means to be human, and audiences have always been here for it. I hope that studios are finally catching on that good sci-fi stories have legs. And if Project Hail Mary lands the way I hope it does, and if Mercy turns out well, these could be the kind of projects that convince Amazon and other studios to dig deeper into the genre. I mean, imagine if this paves the way for them to revive Stargate, a franchise that's been sitting there, a universe that's ripe for a revisit with better effects and sharper storytelling. I'd be first in line for that. And if this works, it might embolden studios to greenlight films featuring other bold concepts. I keep thinking about something like Dan Simmons' Hyperion or Villeneuve's long-awaited adaptation of Arthur C. Clarke's Rendezvous with Rama. If Amazon's betting big on Mercy and Project Hail Mary and they work out well, why not throw some weight behind projects like these? There's a ripple effect here that's hard to ignore every time a studio takes a chance on a cerebral sci-fi film and it pays off. Look at how Arrival and Interstellar shifted the landscape and left people talking for years. If Amazon MGM pulls this off with a couple of hits in the next few years, it'll be exciting to see whether this can have a positive effect on the industry. Either way, I'd like to imagine that we're only at the start of something bigger, and I'm all in for it. But I'm curious to know what you think about this concept for a new sci-fi thriller starring Rebecca Ferguson and Chris Pratt. Does the premise sound interesting to you, or are you waiting to hear more? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more sci-fi and fantasy news, theories, and lore. And if you're looking for other ways to support the channel, you can leave a super thanks or join as a YouTube member for early access to new videos and other perks. You can also check out my Patreon page for exclusive content. Thank you all so much for your support, and as always, have a very nerdy day.